All right, today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make pizza from home using your home oven and using ingredients that you have available to you. The things that you will need, again, is going to be a measuring cup for your liquids, yeast, if you have an active dry yeast or a instant yeast. This case, I'm having a active dry yeast. You do need salt, honey, flour. You could use a 00 flour, an all-purpose flour, or bread flour, whatever you do have available to you. And either a container like this or a container that does have a lid. If you do have a scale, the scale is going to be your best friend. The scale is going to be something that's going to help you get accurate measurements, and it's just overall better. But if you don't have a scale, that's fine. You can use little measuring cups and teaspoons as well. So we have all that here. So today, what we're going to be doing is, again, a pizza from home. And the technique that I like to use is called a Polish. And basically that is a pre-fermented dough. And so I have a simple formula here that you can use for one pizza, 5 pizzas up to 10 pizzas. Just a simple formula here. So for every one pizza, it's 100 milligrams of water, 150 grams of your flour, 5 grams or 1 teaspoon and 1/4 teaspoon of your yeast and your honey, and then 4.5 grams or a little less than teaspoon of salt. And so because I'm going to be showing you guys how to make two pizzas from home, then we need 200 milligrams of water, 300 grams or 2 cups of your flour, 5 grams or 1 teaspoon and 1/4 of your yeast and your honey. So the Polish recipe is done in 2 parts. The first part is going to be your Polish. And again, this is the fermented part, which is pre-fermented for up to 16 to 24 hours in your refrigerator. And so basically, because again, we are doing 2 pizzas, we're doing 50% of the flour. We're using that as your Polish. And so we're going to need 150 grams or 1 cup of your flour, 150 milligrams of your water, and then your yeast and honey, which again is 5 grams or 1 teaspoon and 1/4 of that going to be mixed together. All right, so the first thing that you do want to do is, if you are using a active dry yeast, then you want to get your water, and so again, you could use the tap water, is what basically what I use. But to activate your yeast, you do need to get your water to about 105 degrees, between 105 and 110. And again, if you just run your hot water, you could get it pretty hot. If you do have a thermometer, then that would also help you get to the temperature. And so again, I've ran this for a little bit, and we're looking at about 105, 107, which is perfect. At this point, you want to go ahead and get your yeast in. And then we're also going to be adding in the honey as well to get this activated. Once we get this in there, then we're going to go ahead and get it mixed and let's set at room temp for about 10 minutes just to get this activated. So we'll go ahead and get about 5 grams here. So it's going to go ahead and just get a little bit over that. All right. Once that's there, then I'm going to go ahead and just get this mixed up. All right, so once that's mixed, then you could go ahead now and put this to the side. And again, we're going to go ahead and let this rest for 10 minutes just to get the yeast activated with the honey. And you'll know that it has been activated once you look at the top and you do see some foam. That at that point tells you that it's active and it's ready to be used. In the meantime, then we're going to go ahead and measure out the rest of our ingredients, which now at this point, since we do have the water mixed with the yeast and honey, then we're just needing 150 grams of flour, or again, it's just 1 scoop level cup of flour. So we'll go ahead and get that in our container that we're going to be using. And this container that we are going to be using does have a top, so we're going to be able to close it and put it to the side. And let it do its thing for, again, 16 to 24 hours. And so now we'll go ahead and get our level scoop of flour. And you can use a spoon, whatever. But again, 1 scoop of flour, Again, you either your double all-purpose flour, your double zero, or your bread flour. All right, so 10 minutes has passed, and as you can see, there is some activity in this glass. There are some bubbles and foam, along the top. So we know that the yeast is good and it's ready to go into our flour. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and get this poured in there and make sure everything is in here. Once that's there, then we're going to go ahead and basically get this mixed all together. And so it is going to be a little runny. It almost kind of going to be like a pancake batter basically. And so you just get this mixed in pretty well. Make sure all flour is mixed in there. Make sure all the edges are scraped. All right. And once this is all mixed together, then we're basically just going to go ahead now and get this put to the side at room temp for about 1 hour. And you will see that there will be some activity on this. And then from there, it goes straight in the fridge, again, for up to 16 to 24 hours. So once that's there, then now again, we're going to go ahead, put a cover that. And we're going to go ahead and let this sit at room temp now, like I said, for 1 hour before placing it in the fridge for 16 to 24 hours. All right, so 1 hour has passed, and as you can see, I've taken the top off and have now put on plastic wrap. So within 20 minutes into this hour, the top basically blew off. And so because the Polish has basically doubled and really grown, that means the yeast is good and pretty active. So I put on a plastic wrap and have popped some holes to give it a little bit more air. So now at this point, we'll go ahead and place this into the fridge. And again, like I said, this is going to be in there now for 16 to 24 hours. So yeah, we'll check back tomorrow. All right, so it's now been 18 hours since we placed the Polish in the fridge. And so let's take a look and see what it looks like. And so if you can see this, there's a lot of bubbles in there. It looks like it's pretty active. So there's a lot of bubbles, which is really good, super airy. And now we'll go ahead and place this at room temp for an hour before we start adding the rest of the flour and the rest of the water and the salt. So we'll be back in 1 hour. All right, so now it has been 1 hour, and now at this point, we're gonna go ahead now and get the Polish, and we're gonna add it into our bowl that we have here. Again, if you have something similar, something big, whatever you have, again, you're just gonna go ahead and pour that into your bowl. And if you can smell this, it should give off almost like a sourdough smell. But like I said, we're gonna go ahead and get this placed into our bowl, and you can see the bubbles here. All right, so once this is in the bowl, then we want to now add the day 2 ingredients, which is going to be, again, 50 milligrams of water. So that was 50 of the 200. Then we want to add 150 grams of flour, or 1 level scoop, into the bowl. And then we're doing 9 grams or 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, so once you have your water, then we'll go ahead and get that poured in to your bowl. And at this point, you could either use a whisk to whisk it around, or you could use your hands. It's up to you. But we'll go ahead and just use a whisk. Kind of get this little bit dissolved, broke it up a little bit. All right, so now I've been mixing now for about a minute or so, and it's a little bit more broken up. And so now the next ingredient that we do want to add in here is going to be your flour. And again, it's just 1 full level scoop, or 150 grams of flour. Again, depending if you have a scale. Now we'll go ahead and get, again, 1 scoop full of flour, and you get 1 level scoop. And that should be good. I'm gonna go ahead and get that in there. And once that's in there, again, you want to just use one hand so you have one other hand free. And again, you're just going to go ahead and start mixing this around. Make sure that's all fully incorporated. And you're just using your hands to mix it. And don't be scared to get dirty. Basically, once it's kind of like that, you could still mix around a little bit more if you want. But we're gonna go ahead and get our salt. And again, one hand's dirty. So I have a little bit of salt here. I do need to get a little bit more added. And again, it's 1 teaspoon. This one. And so this is already 1 for 1 pizza, but again, we're gonna go ahead, because it's for 2, we're gonna go ahead and just get a little bit more added here. All right, that should be about good. Oop. And if you spill, that's fine. Get that added there. So now we're just gonna go ahead now and just mix this around a little bit more. And you want to scrape off all the edges. And so you're just getting everything taken off. Alright, and at this point as well, you could go ahead and just be kind of kneading and pinching in, pulling and pushing in. And so we're just going to go ahead and do this for a minute or so until everything has basically come off. All right. Okay. Now once it looks like this, you could go ahead and now put it on your table, counter area. Get all the rest of the other stuff here. And if you do have a stand-up mixer, then you could go ahead and basically put in the mixer and allow this part, to about a couple minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. We are now going to go ahead and knead it. So that will now take, again, about 5 to 10 minutes of kneading. All right, so once it's again here, again, you're just pulling with your hand and pushing in, pulling, push, switch it, pull, 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 and knead it. And you're just doing this now until, again, 5 to 10 minutes. Pulling everything in. And it will be a little sticky, but just because your hands are warm. So again, just continue kneading it and everything will fully come together. All right, so now it's been about 10 minutes of kneading. And again, we were just pulling and pushing air in, pulling and kind of just pushing in. And so 10 minutes has again passed by. Your dough ball should, basically look like this. It is pretty smooth, but we could get it smoother. So the next step that we will be doing is we're gonna let this sit at room temp now for about 15 minutes. And that's just gonna allow the dough basically to relax. And so basically what you wanna do now at this point is you could basically, make into a ball, and you could get one edge, push it in, one edge, push it in, get the other edge, push that in, the bottom part, push that in, and you can flip it around, and the ball looks like this. You could use your 2 hands like that, and basically what you're doing is you're pushing in and pinching with one hand. So it's just basically just kind of pulling it together. Like I said, you're pushing in and pulling the bottom to make it kind of tight. Once it looks like that, then that's perfectly good. You'll go ahead and cover with either a bowl that you were using to mix the dough, or you could use a plastic wrap, whatever's fine. But basically you go ahead and cover that and let this sit now at room temp for 15 minutes, and then we'll be back. All right, so now it's been about 15 minutes. Now the dough has relaxed a little bit more. We're gonna go ahead and just do one little quick knead of the dough, and then we're gonna pull everything back together to make another big ball, and then this time we'll let it sit at room temp for 1 hour before we do what we call balling of the dough. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and the dough is a little bit softer now, so that is good. And so we'll go ahead, just do a real quick knead, and same thing, just pulling it. You could hear some air in there, which is good. Flip it over, and then again, we're just pulling it tight this way. And we're just basically pulling it tight. You could also even basically just kind of, with your hand, just kind of pull and to let it roll. And this also pulls it tight as well. Again, you're just pulling it, pulling it, pulling it, pulling it. And then at this point again, we're gonna go ahead and cover it for 1 hour at room temp. All right, so 1 hour has passed, and you can see the dough ball has expanded a little bit more, and it is soft to the touch, which is good. And so now we are going to be dividing and balling it up to the pizzas. And so you could do it a couple ways. If you have a knife, you basically just cut it down the middle, or if you have one of these, this is just a scraper, you get less than a couple dollars at your store, and pretty simple. We're gonna go ahead, and again, I'm just gonna use this, and we're just gonna go straight down the middle here. So let's cut that, and you cut, and then you just go ahead and pull it this way. If you do have a scale, then you could use a scale, and again, you would be weighing out to about 260 grams each. So let's see. And again, you want to keep the top part always on the top, and again, you're basically just going to go ahead and be pulling in, pulling in, pulling in, pulling in, until the ball is basically going to be tight on top. Another way to do that is also just kind of the top again here, and you're just pulling in, pushing in, pulling in with your hands, just kind of tucking it in. And that's good that you could hear some air there, so that's good. Put it down, and then you're again just twist, twist. All right, until that is smooth. Flip it over and just kind of pinch the edges. And same thing with this one. We're gonna go ahead, again, here's the top here. And we're basically just gonna go ahead and tuck that in. And again, just pulling it, pulling it, pulling it in. Until again, it's a tight ball on top. Again, you could kind of pull it this way. And again, just twisting it from the bottom, pulling it tight. All right, so once you have your dough balls basically balled up and divided, you can go ahead and get a cooking tray like I have here. You can use plates, you can use Tupperware, anywhere. Basically anything you can use, basically just kind of separate the balls and let it again now rise another 2 hours. So we're just going to use this tray here. It's going to put a little bit of flour down. We're going to go ahead and get this, kind of do one last little, get it tight. And you're just going to go ahead and place that down there. Again, same thing with this one. Kind of pinch the bottom. Close it down here. Make sure there's enough space to be divided. You could put a little bit of flour on top. Kind of roll that out there. And then you're going to go ahead and either cover it with a towel, damp towel, or you can go ahead plastic wrap. And then you're going to go ahead and cover it and let it sit at room temp for 2 hours until it expands and gets a little bit bigger. So it's been about an hour and 45 minutes into the 2 hours, and as you can see, the dough balls have basically doubled in size or grown. At this point, you want to go ahead and get your oven started. And so if you have a gas or electric, you want to go ahead and just put it to the highest temperature, which in this case, this is gas, and so this does go up to about 550. And during that, while that's preheating, you could either put in what we call a still, metal still, pizza still, or if you don't have a still, then you could just use basically a cooking tray, and you would just basically just put this in the oven top up, and just let that preheat during the oven while that's going. And while the oven is preheating, then you could go ahead and get your toppings. You could either, do pepperoni. I like to do a whole tomato. These ones you could buy at your local Whole Foods market or any other store. But if you just have regular tomato sauce, pizza sauce, that's totally fine. Also, if you do a fresh mozzarella, perfectly fine as well. You could do the slices, or what I like to do is basically just cut it into thin slices and put on my pizza. So you have your pizza toppings, and while the oven's going, you have your toppings prepped. All right, now that the oven is preheated, you're gonna go ahead and get your dough taken out. So let's go ahead and get this. And you wanna go ahead and be careful now with pulling this out. And so we're just going to take this off. Perfect. And so you want to get some flour, throw some flour on top. You can see how the dough has doubled. And with your tools here, you could go ahead now, and we're going to go ahead and get this separated. And you're just going to go ahead and get some flour on your base, on your ground here. And you're just going to go ahead and get this scooped up. And making sure you keep the top on top. Get that covered. And you want to make sure that this is, keeps the round shape. And you're basically starting from the middle, and you're just going to the edge. Same thing with this. From the middle, going to the edge. And you could throw some flour on there. Flip it over, same thing. And you just pretty much pushing the air to the edges. And you can see there's some air, so you just want to go ahead and pop these bubbles. Flip it one more time. And again, you're just pushing the air to the edges here. Flipping back over. Making sure you keep the top on the top. And then from this point, basically you can let gravity pull, and you're just going in a circle like a steering wheel. Just like this, without crushing your crust. Or you could use your hands, and you're basically just pulling with one hand, pulling and going around the edge. So we could go ahead and do that. And again, we're just pulling, turning, pulling, turning, pulling, until you got your size here, which looks good here. You begin letting gravity pull, and you're just letting it pull down. Once you have your size, at this point, you want to go ahead now and pull out your stone from the oven. And again, be careful that it's hot. So you want to go ahead and just place that on the stove top there. And then you're basically just transferring your dough to that. And so we're just going to go ahead and place this on it. And we're just going to go ahead and put our sauce down on the thing, on your dough. And we're just going to be cooking the dough first, the base with the sauce. And so once that's there, then we're going to go ahead and get some Parmesan. I like to throw some Parmesan on here and just sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan. And we're going to go ahead and now place it back into the oven. And we're going to be cooking this now for about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. I'm basically just watching the crust to seeing that brown. Once that is browns up, then we could go ahead and then put our cheese on there. All right, so 5 minutes has passed. And so as you can see, the dough and the crust and everything has risen a lot. And so now we're going to go ahead and put on our cheese. And again, I did sliced cheese here. Go ahead and put your cheese on. And again, you can put as much cheese as you want, as much toppings. And again, we're doing some pepperoni, so we're gonna go ahead now and add our pepperonis. right. Once the pepperonis are on, then you go ahead now and you're gonna go ahead and again grab it, be careful, and you're gonna go ahead now and put in the pizza back into the oven. And once the cheese melts, then the pizza is cooked. At this point you could also turn on your boiler as well to cook that. But basically you're just watching the cheese to make sure that it melts and it cooks. Once it's melted, then again, that is ready to go. All right, and halfway through where the cheese is melted, you could go ahead and pull this out. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put on some oil around the edges, and you can see it is crisping up pretty good. But if you wanna get a little bit more crisp around the edge, then you could go ahead and again, get some oil around on it. And it's gonna help it little crisp up a little bit. And then now we'll go ahead and put it back in. And again, the cheese is almost at this point melted. All right, and just like that, you have your pizza ready, done, made in the home oven. You can see brown, crispy. The bottom is gonna be crispy as well.